I don't know how many of you saw this wonderful exhibition over the summer by Marie Coté from Quebec. And it was a series of bowls and very sort of traditional ceramic works, but then what the really interesting part of it was that she incorporated sound. And so suddenly through these very sort of traditional looking bowls, if you really started to look at them, they took on this whole other life. And some of them were spinning, some others there were sounds coming out of, and out of those, the sounds that were coming out were the sounds of the Great North. And so the Great North is just this real mystery for most of us. How many people have been up into the Arctic? I don't see too many hands. But Marie Coté's work evoked the Arctic in the hearts and minds and in a very amazing feeling that is, you know, and that's what the arts do, is that this ability to evoke a feeling and evoke our imagination so that we see it in our own way. So it's not the Arctic, but it's the way that we see it, and if it's our thing, because we're seeing it through our own eye and our own experience, it suddenly becomes really magical and real. And Marie Coté was able to do that. And the entire gallery space was devoted to her work, including a wonderful other installation that was in the Douglas Wright Gallery that she will tell you about. But so let me just introduce to you Marie Coté. So, tu peux venir t'installer si tu veux. So, Marie Coté has been exhibiting regularly since 1986, and her works can be found in many public art collections, including the Musée d'Art Contemporain de Montréal, the Canada Council Art Bank, the collection of the Musée National des Beaux-Arts du Québec, the Lotto Québec collection, and the Daniel Witaluktuk Memorial Museum, j'ai pratiqué, and Cultural Transmission Center collection in Inukjuak, as well as many private collections. I give you Marie Coté.
Thinking of the specific context of this presentation, I chose to present tonight the works of three key moments in my career. 1986, when I produced what I considered to be my first exhibition. 2005, when I met with two musicians, and they got me to hear and listen to my work. And then my Northern project, which Christian just talked about, in 2011 in the small community of Inukjuak. From my point of view, making art is the representation into form and meaning of human experiences, our relationships to one another, and our environment. I consider these three moments important both to my personal experiences and my development as an artist. Of course, the leap in time is important, and you will obviously notice differences in the work itself. Yet clay is the constant throughout. Giuseppe Pennone, one of the artists I most respect and enjoy, says, "Clay is such a wonderful material for creation. You can find it anywhere. It's both the most common material. It is rich with dust, rich with memories of shapes. It is a mixture of dust of the past. It is the fluid world of the imagination." But as I progressed in my development and my work, notions of time made their way into my thoughts, as well as a constant desire to seize part of the immateriality of the world surrounding us. Time, of course, is measured according to each of our lives, and for me this goes back to 1978 when I first threw with clay. Time is also what marks, to my understanding, the difference between pottery, which I still enjoy doing, and what is to me sculpture and installation. Octavio Paz wrote a short essay called Use and Contemplation, in which he explains the nature and questions around craft and art. This essay answers many of my questions and offered a different point of view which made it possible for me to make sense of my art in general, being functional, wheel-thrown, or sculptural. Paz explains quite nicely, on the one hand, how functional ware, the one we enjoy using, belongs to the everyday time. On the other hand, sculpture belongs to a time of reflection, contemplation, essential to thought and its ability to establish new relations. In other words, I came to understand craft and art in terms of time. All the pleasure that comes with the use of a beautiful cup, a time length measured to daily life, and all the pleasure and questioning that comes with looking at a piece of art, a time length circumstantial. But to me, these differences are not opposite, but rather complementary. Music imposes time as well when it comes to listening. When I first participated in events with my friends musicians, I wasn't at ease. I realized how spectators focused their attention on listening and looking. They were actually concentrating and making an effort for as long as the music went on and carefully observing my pieces. When one realizes at what speed most visitors breeze through shows in museums and art galleries, having a small crowd of people spending more than 10 minutes looking at my work destabilized me. Finally, there's Northern time. A linguist I met in Inuktitut explained to me how in Inuktitut one can but doesn't have to conjugate the verb in a sentence. I like to think that this way of communicating fits a territory that one can absorb and scrutinize on a 360-degree horizon, and where time and space are circular, with no beginning and no end. And then there's clay, the material I use most. Conceptually, my work seeks to reveal the complex experience that leaks an object to space. An empty space can easily be imagined, but one cannot conceive an object without space. From my first installations, bringing shadows to light, to my translating into movement the evanescence of wind, and most recently, in the immateriality of the interior spaces where sounds resonate, the active force between space and matter nourishes my imagination. So I'll start showing you some slides, some images of this first installation I did in 1986. I spent actually 2 semesters at the Liverpool Polytechnics in England for ongoing training under the supervision of Marilyn Smith, she's a ceramicist, and Ron Hazelden, he's a sculptor. He was teaching at the time at Reading University in the suburbs of London. By the end of my stay, Marilyn offered me the school gallery for a period of 6 weeks. Considering making ceramics can involve a lot of equipment and production time, I had spent most of my 6 months leading up to that meeting, visiting and exchanging with artists. And I'm not mentioning all the Guinness drinking. So therefore, I chose to engage myself in the gallery with the minimum of means. A few boxes of clay, plinths, lights, and paper. Despite the fact that for Liverpudlians, life wasn't easy, these were the Thatcher years, I was fascinated by the Victorian architecture in the neighborhood, and especially that of the Anglican Cathedral, completed in 1978, and in front of which I was living. Was it urgency, a 6-week time schedule to produce a full-scale show? Was it in fact that I had little to work with, or a combination of all my experiences? In any case, what I presented is still today a reference in many of my works, the engagement of sculpture and drawing. So what you see, and the few other images, is really what I did there. So I had an empty square white gallery. plug in the lights, let them on the floor just to make myself a little light when I would come in every morning to work in the gallery, and started to build some clay boxes. There's one feature there in the neighborhood that I was fascinated with were the chimney pots. I actually saw many of them even on the sidewalks. They're about this high, they're stacked cylinders, red clay. They're quite nice, and they're all on the roofs all over. So I just started to build houses and put those little chimney pots on top, but really with the lights on the floor, what was happening wasn't on the plinths. What was happening was on the walls. And what you see are the shadows of our plinths and boxes. And so I thought that was a really neat idea to work with the profile of that architecture surrounding me. So here the second slide is really one of the boxes, but nothing was fired. There was no time to fire anything. All the clay went back to recycling after the show. It was very quickly done because I didn't have much time to work. And so I really tried to do the cathedral because that was just an amazing building. Paul McCartney had a show there for the opening, a musical opus of something. And so again, just with little bits and pieces of clay, stacked boxes, using also when you project light like this on objects where the shadows are, the architecture of the wall is also important and could change your conception and the shadows themselves. So this is what it looked like. And so it pretty much looks like the real thing. And what was interesting is that when the visitors came to the gallery, they, like most of us, looked at the clay boxes, and it took them a little bit of time to realize that that wasn't really the show. The show was on the walls with the shadows. And then there was the third wall, a white wall, and I had paper with me. So I was myself living in a very nice Victorian house on the third floor, and every morning when I would open the window, I would see this beautiful tree and all the back gardens separated with brick walls. So I very simply put the paper on the wall and started to draw the tree with leftovers of raw clay that was sitting on the floor, made a bunch of bricks, and obviously I thought the paper was too small because the tree went growing out of the paper. So following this exhibition, I came back to Montreal, of course, and I did more exhibitions using the same type of thing, but in such a smaller scale, like this piece. It's a combination of material where the accumulation of fragments in space recompose themselves into shadows that enable one to see on a flat and continuous surface the diverse and scattered, like this piece called Le Trompe-l'œil du Souvenir, which is from Marguerite Yourcenar, Les Mémoires d'Adrien. So from the immateriality of shadows came the immateriality of sound, because in 2005, I met two young composers, one of which is a percussionist, Zia Tabassian, and I met also his friend Olivier Giroir, who is a composer and electroacousticien. When Zia, he's an Iranian percussionist, walked into my studio for the first time, this particular moment is still in my mind a magical event. Zia is curious and likes to explore sound on anything surrounding him. So he actually started to tambourine on every ceramic piece in the studio. He had no apprehension and no sense of fragility. He just played on everything that was around him, different pieces in size and shape. And for the first time, I heard my ceramics. There were not only visual works, but they each had a voice of their own. From that moment on, sound and acoustics have played an important role in my work. There were 3 small porcelain bowls. What he did at the first time, he just took one bowl and scraped it on the other bowl, making obviously he's a very good percussionist, and then he just tambourine on the bowls. And the other excerpts I wanted to show you was a piece called The Winds, which came just before the wind catchers that were here last summer. And he really, when I go like this on my ceramics, it's usually noise. When Zia starts playing, it's music. And it's quite a nice feeling to hear what you do when you thought all your life you were just a visual artist. I do now refer to my work as being silent or musical, which most of the time leaves the spectator to think that there's always a voice, even if it's just silent. After I met Zia, I did a few, many pieces, but I picked a few. This piece called Sketch for Drums was actually a piece I was supposed to do with him, where I built myself a very large bat on my wheel, and I threw some very large sort of ribbons like this, and the idea was to glue some skins onto those deformed frames, but it never really worked out because those pieces were not perfectly circle, and so the strength of a circle wasn't there when the skin dries for drums. It shrinks, and they all broke. But I thought they were quite interesting just as they are this way, so I did keep them. And then there's this piece here that was here last summer, Wind's Catchers, which is silent, and I guess because of the shapes of the pieces, people would go and try to listen to what was in there, but it was actually a silent piece. There were wavelengths like this. I saw some wind maps, which I think are very beautiful, so I sort of translated those wind maps into those pieces. And what you see in the back was a large and very long piece of paper that was sort of traveling on this wall. And I did that with clay slabs that I just rolled on paper, and obviously the paper absorbed the water of the clay and got the paper to shrink. So when you look inside of those, you have those wavelengths, and then it just kept on going on the paper. And then there was also this invitation from a young dancer by the name of José Gagnon. So she had this dance chant performance with 6 other dancers, singers, and they were performing Georgian chants, which are polyphonic chants. And so she borrowed from me a piece, this piece called Les Jeux de Jarre. That one is sitting in my living room, and the other one is au Musée d'Art Contemporain Montréal. And all of the dancers and singers got their turn on stage to sing into those jars. And again, porcelain has a very nice resonance, especially porcelain that is not glazed. It works better. I'll show you just an image of this piece that was here last summer again, called Le Puits Wells. So I don't have the music to this. I thought maybe a lot of you people had seen it, and I had to shrink a little bit my time. But there are some hidden speakers into those shapes. And really what Olivier did with this piece is to record in my studio the making of those pieces. And since each of the ceramic shapes have its own sound, if you knock on it, you hear a sound, a note, which makes the porcelain resonate. So Olivier, not only did he record the sound, me at my wheel making those pieces, but also the sound of each of one of those pieces, and he sort of made a music out of that was running for 15 minutes. These musical collaborations have encouraged me to think of the involvement of working with other artists. Collaborative work allows for inquiring and decentering without losing sight of our respective objectives, and it fosters dialogues and encounters throughout the course of working together. The creative process adds to the layers of our respective sensibilities, which develop a multi-sensory depth. So from this piece, I'll go to my northern project that was also here last summer, When I first heard throat singers at the Montreal Symphony Orchestra, I was intrigued and fascinated by their chants and decided I would try to work with them for a new project. The Conseil des Arts et des Lettres du Québec and the Avatak Cultural Institute subsidize an artist-in-residence program in Nunavik, which is in northern Quebec. My proposal to have throat singers sing into some of my bowls was accepted. There are so many things one can say about the North, and every time I talk about it, it is difficult for me to separate the human experience from that of my artistic venture. It took me a few weeks there to realize that this territory presents to us elements of the essentials. In many ways, all of what I did up north and afterwards reflects this desire to reduce to a minimum of means one's expression in order to reflect the beauty and the immensity of the North. So, well, maybe a lot of you saw the show last summer, but I'll still show you a few of the drawings that I did. When I was up north, there's nothing to do there but walk and look out to the horizon. And on day 2, I just was walking by Hudson Bay and my foot sank into clay. So I said, oh, this is nice. So I took the stuff back to my studio, and it was very poor stuff. I couldn't do anything. There was no plasticity at all. So I drew with it. So these are the drawings that I did. I had taken with me very naively 20 bowls, 20 porcelain bowls. In my mind, it would have been easy to say, oh, you sing for me and I give you back one of my bowls, which is some kind of exchange, which I thought was pretty smart on my part. To realize that bowls are very, very and highly sophisticated in the North. They eat what we eat now today, but food is very expensive. And so when they have a chance to eat their own country food, they do it. That means hunting and fishing. And they don't use bowls and plates. They just eat raw there. So coming with porcelain bowls, thinking that they would go, oh, those are so nice, was pretty naive on my part. So it took me, I had to sort of put myself into the same wavelength than those people and the territory I was in. You cannot think of the world in the same way when there's nothing around you and that you can see for as far as you want. It's just not the same thing. So having found this clay, I started to draw my bowls. So I did this on a daily basis. Really, I just put my hand in a bucket of clay. I had paper with me, and I just drew like this with my hand. Every day I would do 1 or 2 of those drawings. Again, because it's wet clay, the paper would absorb the water, so you got all those folds. And the next day, on the territory, I was talking over dinner with Louise, Mr. Poole's wife, and she was up north. There's all sorts of stuff on the territory. You can find caribou skins and caribou, I don't know the word in English, antlers. I found the wing of a bird, and there's a lot of wings like that. And so I just took a wing, and every second day I would just clean my drawings, and the excess of clay would fall down. So I did about 40 to 47 of those drawings, but I got 24 framed. This is, well, I didn't take the picture from here because there was lots of reflection in the glass, but this was in Montreal, in Oboro. I had that show just before coming here. So this is a collection of 24 of those drawings that I did of my bowls. But making these bowls was just for me a way to work in a very simple way, and it got me to reduce all my expectations about the North and made it easier for me to go and ask for the singers to sing for me, because I was there 7 weeks and I got my first throat singing session only on the 5th week. So, and then again from this gallery here, I did the horizon line. Well, you just go like this and you just see the same thing all the time. The artist Michael Snow did the same thing in 1971 with a camera. You just cannot go up north and not be amazed at the horizon line, because there's no trees, there's little houses. You can, you know, away from a village, you're out nowhere, and you just see that horizon. So I made this drawing that goes for 32 meters long. I had rolled paper, it just goes forever. I did some recording, like I just said, on the 5th week. So these are pictures of how it happened. Finally, they announced on the radio, I was here in Inukjuak, and they got some young singers to come, and so I just distributed my porcelain bowls and hoping that something would happen. On the top picture on your left, that's in the community house, a family house. That was the first session, and then the 3 other pictures were taken in the harmak. The harmak is the summer version of the igloo, and this is what it sounds like. And so, because I always had in mind when I was up north that I would present this work in the format of an exhibition, oh, you can hear the water. I decided that I would use those recordings of the throat singing and that of the landscape. I did lots of recording of the water when I was there, of just the beat of the life in the community. And so I did just what I did with the whale that was exhibited in the gallery there this summer. So there are speakers that are hidden in the smaller bowl, and then there's this other bowl right on top, and that's where the music comes out. So we just hear water now, but how do we say, it went on for 1 hour during the show, so you would hear eventually throat singing and then water, a bird. They all drive little 4x4, I don't know how you call it, so small vehicles, so you would hear those motors. But that's how I decided to exhibit. And well, there was 4 of those porcelain diffusers organized in a square shape, but that's pretty much how they sing. They sing 2 by 2, but I was lucky enough that I got 4 of them all to sing for me with the bowls, and so that's why I sort of installed those. This is another bit of the throat singing. So this is all done holding bowls. I still feel very lucky to have spent some time up north, and I would like to finish my presentation with images of 2 pieces I did after this experience. For obvious reasons, they are connected to the work I did in Inukjuak. So this piece is called Le Son est rond. Initially, I thought I would be putting sound into there, but it just didn't work out. So it's a collection of 30 porcelain bowls. To get that sort of dome shape or cupola shape, I threw the bowls on my wheel, but not on a flat bat like this, but I just used a bat and supports to throw angle, because I did really want to keep the parabole, the inside parabole of a bowl, which makes the sound resonate, but I still wanted to have all the angle to create that cupola thing. But this piece came to mind because that the dome shape is everywhere up north. It's upside down, it's the igloo, but it could be the sky. Like, it's just amazing, it goes forever, this sort of vault shape in the sky. It's also the rocks that there are accumulations of rocks that serve as burial grave for Inuits and animal traps. I was lucky enough when I was up there, I met with Inuk archaeologist, so he's the one that walked the territory with me to show me these things. And they're always in a shape like this. And then there's the last piece I did, which is this one. At the still point of the turning wheel, this was spinning here. It spins very, very slowly. If you're not look properly, you won't even see it spin, but it just keeps on spinning. When sitting on rocks in the tundra, looking out at the horizon, I often said that I couldn't see further because of the curve of the earth. I felt pretty close to that central point. This point is also what one looks when centering clay on the wheel. A long time ago, my friend Peter O'Brien introduced me to T.S. Eliot's poem, 4 Quartets, in which Eliot talks of the still point. Upon my return from Inukjuak, I printed this quote to hang in my studio because it seemed to me that somehow I had experienced for the first time in my life the extraordinary sense of being myself in the heart of each moment. The quote goes like this: "At the still point of the turning world, neither flesh nor fleshless, neither from nor towards. At the still point, there the dance is, but neither arrest nor movement. And do not call it fixity, where past and future are gathered, neither movement from nor towards, neither ascent nor decline, except for the point, the still point. There would be no dance, and there is only the dance." Thank you.